everybody. I'm Jessie, and thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so grateful for each of you and the special impact you've all had on my year this year. To begin, I'll just give a little bit of context. So I'm from Michigan. I've been the proud northerner of our class this year, and I graduated from Calvin University in 2023. And around my senior year, I just really felt like I wanted some form of a gap year coming out of college. I felt like I had a lot of discerning to do about what was next. Felt like there was a lot of reflection I wanted to do about my time in college. And I also really wanted to move somewhere new. Really wanted to plant myself in a new city post-grad. But I wanted to do all of this in community. So it doesn't take much explaining to see how the Fellows program really fit that ticket pretty much perfectly. And it has in some beautiful and really unexpected ways this year. This year I spent some of my time living and working with the Riley family at Quail Run Farm, which is a 120-acre regenerative farm in Lookout Valley. And for my internship here, I helped with some marketing and community engagement tasks as the farm entered just their second year of being a farm. Living here also meant that I got to know two of the hardest working professionals and parents I've ever met, Joe and Rachel, and also befriended some cute and feisty toddlers named Jonah and Jacob. Living here also meant that I had one of the shortest commutes, I'm sure, of my entire career, but this didn't stop me from meeting people from all over the world. The farm hosts dozens of volunteer farmhands through the program called WOOF, so I met people from as far away as Switzerland or as nearby as Michigan on this farm this year, which has been one of my favorite parts of being there. This year I also worshiped and served at the mission, which has been just an incredible blessing of the year, and I'm so excited to stay there after this program. And last but certainly not least, I got to be part of this wonderful class of 7 in Ralston. And if all I left this year with were the relationships that I've gotten with these people, I would feel incredibly lucky. But I'm leaving with so much more than that. So to share more about my Fellows experience alongside many, many photos, I wanted to talk about a few themes that have shaped my year, and particularly how they've shaped the fourfold pillars of the Fellows program, which are faith, civics, community, and vocation. And the first of these is story. So much of the Fellows program is really framed with story. All year long, we have shared and received stories, both as a class and from countless individuals all across our city. I've learned so much about how to celebrate stories of beauty, how to sit with the ones of grief and brokenness, and how to engage in the ones that even make me feel uncomfortable or just ugly. In our class with Liz this fall, I was reminded in fresh ways of what makes us human, and part of that is story. And it's in sharing these stories that we actually make the glue that helps bind community together and also restore dignity in one another. Looking through this lens of story is also an encouragement when looking at painful shared history. So from our civil rights pilgrimage in Alabama this spring to even a walking tour throughout our own city of Chattanooga, simply deepening my understanding of the stories of our shared past, both locally and globally, has really helped me understand what God is doing in redeeming the brokenness that I can see around me. Story has also helped me understand my own vocation. Every Friday this year, we are blessed with vocational lunches where marketplace leaders from all across the city come in to share their story with us. And these conversations have been such a blessing to me, and they've helped me understand that all career journeys, even the ones that I admire most, are full of plot twists. More than I would ever imagine. And I think like many college grads, I have felt this sense of urgency to figure things out and make as many strides in my career ASAP. But this year has really helped me reframe this, and this quote from Strong and Weak by Andy Crouch, which we read with Joey Sherrard this year, I think is a glimpse of that. And it says, "Meaningful action participates in a story. It has a past and a future. It does not just come from nowhere and does not vanish in an instant. It takes place in a story that matters." I love how this book and this quote has helped me know that the good I do someday vocationally or otherwise, is not in spite of the postponements or trials I might face, but precisely because of them. And because I get to co-author my story with God, a concept we picked up from Dan Allender's book, To Be Told, I've helped and been able to loosen my grasp on the desire to streamline my story. I know how to understand that God will be with me as I read pages of my life that have more brokenness in them than I can understand, and that he will also be alongside me in rejoicing as we turn to new chapters. But more than anything, the Fellows really has helped me situate and punctuate my own story in the far greater redemptive story of God. The next theme is curiosity. So I came into this year like I've gone into many years of my life, which is with lots of questions and looking for answers. And spoiler, I didn't find most of the answers that I came in looking for, and if anything, I'm probably walking away with more. But I'm not upset about this because I think the way that I approach questions have changed a lot this year. Earlier this year, Colby Nance led one of our everyday faithfulness discussions, and the theme was questions. And in this, he reminded us that in the Bible, God is the first one to ask a question. And it's when he's in the garden with Adam and Eve, and he asks, "Where are you?" It's a simple question, and it's one that I think God probably knew the answer to when he asked it, but he asks this question so that his children would be reoriented. He asks it to invite his children out of shame and into a conversation of curiosity. And so questions begin the restoration process, a process which I'm learning is our whole lives. So the Fellows has taught me to pay attention to the sort of questions that I'm asking, and has encouraged me to ask questions that prick at our imagination instead of criticism, and that recognize the fuller story behind the person I might be talking to. As an Enneagram 1 perfectionist type, it's easy for me to be more critical than curious at times, so I'm really grateful for this new sense of curiosity that the Fellows has given me and how it's helped me shift my gaze from one of control or criticism to compassion and curiosity. Curiosity has also immensely impacted my experience of moving to a new city. When I came here in the fall, I was a first-time Chattanoogan, had never heard of Buc-ee's, and didn't know how to prepare for what a snow day would look like here. But getting to know this place that I'm living in has really been a highlight of the year. And through our weekly nonprofit visits to places like Welcome Home or Chattanooga Sports Ministries and countless more, I've gotten to know Chattanooga from so many different angles, some pretty and some less so, but all of which are the things that are keeping me curious and ultimately leading me to stay here. Curiosity also, I think, is closely related to attention, and so this quote by Justin Whitmore Early, "Attention is our precious commodity. Our life is defined by what we pay attention to," is a quote that I think really puts things in perspective for me. The Fellows year has been a lesson in paying attention and a reminder to me that how I pay attention determines things like how I love my neighbor and how I'm discerning where God is calling me next. And so I'm so grateful for the habits of attention that the Fellows has started to teach me, and how they've helped me curiously look towards the unknown with a posture more of hope rather than control. Patience is another theme of this year that comes right alongside curiosity. For me, graduating college sort of felt like the gates were swung wide open, and all of a sudden I was stuck between the pull of arriving somewhere and the push of adventure. And so Fellows has really been the perfect place for me to land this year. At times when I felt myself trying to hurry up and figure it out this year, I've been surrounded by patient community that can remind me to slow down and trust God's pace over my own. During one of our community dinners this year at the Ingram's house, Jonathan said that our God is a God of process. And this reminder has stuck with me all year, and I think will for the rest of my life. These community dinners have been a source of so many reminders like these. Around the dinner tables that we sit at on Monday dinner nights, I've gotten to witness patience. As I hear the families share their stories of how pieces in their life lives has shifted in ways that remind them that they are not in control of the process that they are living in. I've also been experiencing so much hospitality at these dinner tables, which I think has a lot to do with both patience and curiosity. 2 Peter 3:9 is a verse that has been encouraging me all year also. It reminds me that God has brought me all this way. Even when it's quiet, he is always faithful. And this helps me trust him to continue crafting the story ahead. Recently, a pastor at the mission, Daniel, told me that discernment is the always work of a Christian. I've learned that sometimes while I'm waiting, I am not very patient. And so to be patient, I need to remain curious too, to actively pay attention to all the places, big and small, that God may be nudging me along. And because patience is active, my last theme is practice. This past year has been an incredible year of looking and learning, and now I feel equipped with so many new tools and frameworks that I know I'll use the rest of my life. But as I finish Fellows, it has been important for me to look at the rest of my life as one of practice, one of doing the work of life, whether meaningful or mundane, with hope and aimed more towards faithfulness and less at accomplishment. And so to avoid the application of my Fellows year turning into a long list of to-dos, like I so often do, I am focusing on adding just a few habits that I want to commit to. The first of these is a weekly Sabbath. Living and working in the same place this year reminded me of how bad I am at resting, and it's made it impossible to ignore that I need it desperately. But it's actually taking this rest, taking a day to play and delight in God's creation, that can help me work from and not strive for my belovedness. So I want to commit to having one day a week to remove distraction, prioritize time for both solitude and community, and to reflect on where I've seen God move around me in the past week. The next practice is one much less specific but equally important, and it comes from one of my favorite books that we read this year, Liturgy of the Ordinary. Tish writes that if I am to spend my whole life being transformed by the good news of Jesus, I must learn how grand sweeping truths of the gospel rub against the texture of an average day. How I spend an ordinary day in Christ is how I will spend my Christian life. And so as I go about making my bed or doing the dishes in my own small mundane ways, I can be reminded of how God is repeatedly renewing creation all around me every day. Third commitment is committing. Earlier this year, my mentor, Casey Strickland, who I'm abundantly grateful for, reminded me that we need containment to thrive. And as a dabbler and someone who is often very indecisive, I'm not sure she knew how directly this would hit me, but it's been a quote that has guided me in countless ways this year, and is actually a quote that helped me commit to a job for this coming year. So I'll be working at United Way, where I'm really excited to get to continue connecting with many of the nonprofits that I've been introduced to this year, and continue to patiently practice professionalism as part of a city. And in closing, I wanted to circle back to a story that we read on the first couple days of the year. Leaf by Niggle is a short essay by J.R.R. Tolkien, and it's a story about an artist named Niggle who spends as much time as he can afford painting a mural of a tree. He makes very little progress on it since he's constantly interrupted by neighbors or tasks that need to be done. But an even larger reason he can't seem to finish this painting is because he is obsessed with painting the perfect leaf on this tree. This story eventually follows Niggle to his passing, and at this point, he still never finished his life's goal of painting this tree. He recognizes this tree when he eventually arrives at the place which the reader would assume to be heaven, but when he sees this tree, it is far fuller and more beautiful than he ever could have imagined it being. And so in my life, as I am tempted like Niggle to try and paint the perfect leaf or perfect parts of my life or zoom in on the things that I feel like I can control, I'm reminded that if I simply am faithful, God, not I, will bring to completion the things that I begin. And he will bring it to a completion that is far more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. This means that I can take delight in the interruptions of neighbors and friends, and that I can practice day in, day out without being too critical of the results, and instead patiently trust that God is actively redeeming me and the world around me with any of the work that I do. Thank you.